Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where I have the pleasure to speak with you. I'm looking forward to today's session. Today is a part of our demo series, and we've been doing these throughout the quarter and really every Tuesday at this time. And we'll have some more, and I'll talk to you about those other opportunities, as well as time for you to ask questions. So this is for you folks to understand today about what portfolio management means, how do we use it in a tool session, and we're going to get through this with a little bit of introduction of who we are and who I am, then jump into our demand management. I'm going to do some scenario modeling around the portfolio. We're going to be doing prioritization and project and program management, followed by the ever constraints, right? Who's doing what when, and how much does it cost? So resource and finance constraint planning, followed by some of our reports. So we're going to go in chunks like this. I'm also going to go into iterations here. So it's going to be one topic by the next. Make sure that if you have questions, go ahead and ask those at any point, but we will be doing this for our recording so you can go back later and get all these sections. So I wanted to thank you very much for joining us. We are PPM Works. We're here to serve you for everything around Microsoft Project. We've been doing this since early, 1998. I've been jumping in here, worked on PMO development as well as tool and technology. I had the pleasure of working with Microsoft, both the marketing group and the product group with past iterations, and continue to do so, and really thank Microsoft for their support, their innovation, as well as their drive in and around not only the tool set, but the overall thought of work management, which we're going to see in a later demo series, but also this thought and idea of portfolio management. Now, if you want to go ahead and connect with me, make sure you go ahead and do that via LinkedIn. And at the end here, I will make sure to put up some quick and easy links for you to do that. We also, like I mentioned, we are doing demo series every Tuesday. Everything that we save, we put up here on our YouTube channel. So I invite you, there it is. You can search our name, PPM Works, out there. Go ahead and subscribe. If you were subscribed to this and didn't have the opportunity to be watching this recording live, it would come in through that subscription, usually the afternoon of after we do these. So again, a really good resource. If there's something up there that you want to comment on, feel free. Let us know how it is, or let us know about other topics. We're always here to take a look at expanding and really innovating the concepts in and around project, portfolio management, and work. So today, how is your organization currently doing all this? You know, this thought of portfolio management and really demand management. How are you getting all these ideas, all these projects into a common area that we can take a look at and really understand? And then from there, how do we make those decisions? Is it data-driven decisions? Is it gut feel? What are we actually doing to make these projects real or not? And then how do we manage them? We're going to be getting into that value, that concept of value of our portfolio, and understanding those scenarios. And then we're going to show you how easy the tool is. Again, tool specific here today, doing demos, to go ahead and set up these portfolios. If you like something that you see and you're saying, hey, I don't have that in my project online, or I don't have that in my project server, or I don't even have an enterprise solution right now, I want to go ahead and try it, just let us know. You can send something to info@ppmworks.com, and we'll go ahead and get you set up. So the first thing that we want to talk about here is the concept of demand management, and really bringing in any new ideas, potentially taking a look at projects that are out there. And think about this: if you're trying to manage a system all by yourself, how are you going to bring in everything? Right? So you're going to have all these different requests that are coming in, whether it's through an email, whether it's through the water cooler, or maybe at a coffee. Whatever happens, if they know you're the person or the group that's responsible for getting projects or requests up to that leadership committee, or maybe that portfolio governance organization, whatever you call it within your organization, they might tap on you to say, hey, this is what I'd like to do. How do I get started? Or simply just have you try to do it for them. So we really want to make sure that we're capturing all these requests. And you can see in this diagram just the different shapes and sizes of requests that come in. And we're really going to have some sort of tool that's going to churn these things. And this is where you can start, if you'd like to, by using workflow. I could say, hey, we need to create a request form, and we'll show you this. I want to create a simple request form. Folks can use it. If they have Office 365, they can come in and just create unlimited amount of requests. So they don't need a special license besides, the tool set that they're going to be using. We're going to show you something maybe on Forms or InfoPath, one of those, free tools that's out there that you can get when you're looking at your organization-wide as an enterprise solution. So once we get those requests that come in, the workflow is going to appropriately sort it to where it needs to be. The end case here is really building that sustainable business case that says, hey, we would like to request some resources, some dollars, some effort of some group to get something done. And how do we go about doing that? What is the strategy behind all that? And how easy is it to set up within the solution? So it starts me off with making sure we're all on the same page with understanding that concept that we just talked about, demand management. So within this demo, we're going to talk about capturing everything: work proposals, requests, change requests, whatever it happens to be, all in one single place, in an area so we can make those decisions. And that's really what this is about. If we have, Excel or sticky notes and we're just capturing all these things, that could be good because you can see it. But how do we actually triage that data, and how do we make sure that we're getting responses back to the people that filled out the request and they can track where this request is going? That, my friends, is going to be using that workflow, and that overall grab or collection of data or information in this case is really what we're talking about for demand management. Okay, so it is that piece of that tool that you're going to be using it. Now this, on the life cycle of the evolution of the tool, has been around for a bit. The process and how you actually do it and the hooks into it is kind of new, and we're going to show you some of those today. So when you're getting into EPM solutions here around the life cycle, this is just a sample, my friends. So if we go from demand management or creation of an idea, then we have to go somewhere. Does everything that people ask for always get done, or is this wish list or dream project that might come in? Is there a selection idea? And if there is the selection area, that in this case, that portfolio selection, that group or tool that's doing that, at some point they're going to say, yes, we want to bring this subset in. And that's typically, where you hear these users asking for a lot, and then we actually look at cost and look at resource availability and then select those. But I lean in and ask you this question: is it just about the projects that are new that are coming in, or is it also we want to take a look at existing projects? And in this case, we're going to do both, okay? And then, great, you folks that are joining, you might be project or program managers. This is where you take and run with it. Go off, plan the work, manage, execute, and close. Whatever happens to be your different phases there that you're seeing. And we're being very liberal with just those 4 generic phases here. So just a quick recap. We want a simple experience here where we can collect all of our information, and then we also want to be able to respond back to people. We want it to be very flexible in a mindset of, hey, we're having not only millennials join the workforce, but we have all these other folks with these super powerful computers called phones, right? That they do much more than just take pictures and check their social media. We can actually respond back or create and fill out a request because the idea just came to us, or we're not at a machine particularly to request. What if we're on the shop floor? What if we have to be in the manufacturing area, or if we're with a client or a patient? Okay, what happens there? So going across every industry and every walk of life. Now, when you take a look at the concepts of the demand management, this is sort of the last area before we jump in here. As we start breaking these out into areas within the tool set, and we're going to talk about a few of these today. We're going to absolutely talk about stage and phase gate. And then, PDPs or these detail pages. Now, these are really getting a little more technical within the tool set, but this would be your setup. And you really want to bring it all the way back up to a focal point, in this case, a project type. So you can have multiple types of projects. And you're saying, yeah, we do. We have an operational project. We have regulatory. We might have new product development. You folks get the gist here. So each one of these can follow a different workflow, bring in a different request, have approvals go out to different organizations, both internal and external. Access and also approvals could happen depending on how you set this thing up. Now at the end, we're going to see a single solution that's going to look like Excel. We're going to be able to capture all this data, be able to sort, group, filter, report on this, as well as update different things here. So that's what we're going to get into in our first demonstration today, all around demand management and getting into ideation. And so if I just bring one of my windows up here. All right, well, we have a demo environment, folks. If you're new to Project Online, just a real quick view here. It's who we're logged in, top right-hand corner. We happen to be looking at Project Online. We are PPM Works. This is what we've configured for you folks, but a lot of what we're showing you today is either out of the box or configured solutions or things that we've developed as well. So let us know if you have any questions, but this demonstration, we're going to concentrate on a lot of things that are configurable within the solution. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to potentially ideate or create a new idea. And if we go ahead and do that, you can see over here that I have a nice form. Now, the background, folks, it can be whatever you want. So if we actually come in here and we want to create, and this is a new request, right? So we have new development, Office 215. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and develop, and it's going to be around this product group, and we're going to come in here and you might put a start date, etc., whatever it happens to be. And if you're not a new development or a new prod, what if it's just an IT rollout project? So we have a Oracle replacement or something like that, right? You can do whatever you want here in this request. We can go ahead and search. So this is an AD search. And if I go through and just search for my admin area here, it can go ahead and say, oh, there's my admin. We can have lookup fields. We can have dynamic drop downs, whatever you want. Very simple list here, folks. You can get as creative as you want. And then here we have create project on save. Now, if I have this checked, it's going to go off and create the project, and off it goes. It may or may not find a template in this case. But for this demonstration, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to come in here, and we're going to have JZ here, and we're going to just add some details. You guys get the point. We do want to put a cost in here because we're going to potentially use this project for one of our views. And what's the return on investment? We're spending about $600,000, and we're going to get about $1.5 million here. And then because we're filling all this out, let's put it in program C. 300. At the end, we just go ahead and save this, and now we've filled this out. Well, that is really nice if it's on a device, let's say, or you have multiple people. We just used, in this case, a Power App, okay, that created a form to fill out, and it's a new project request. Now you can see right here, I have my Oracle replacement project, and they're all coming in here. I can actually, rather than fill out that form, if I want to do a bulk update, what I can do is they can fill it out in Excel or all this other stuff. But friends, as you take a look here, this is glorified Excel, right? If I come here and open this up, here is our list. And I can literally just take, well, we have this Oracle, we have this Oracle replacement project, but I also have, 3 or 4 other projects. And in this case, it's going to be, Microsoft Teams rollout, etc., whatever it happens to be. And I can update all this information right here. I can drag and drop just like you can in Excel. So there really isn't any reason why we shouldn't be able to just mimic something that you have already. You say, no, I do this in Excel. Now, okay, so you're saying, great. So we have that, no problem, I get it. Well, The big piece here is now we take a couple of these projects and we want to go ahead and bulk create these so we can go into our tool set here and start to do our selection on strategic, whether it's a drop-down value or maybe an entire strategic alignment. In this case, it takes and says, hey, I know what this is. This is going to be the project name. It matches up all this information. You can go in here and say, no, I don't want budgeted cost. This is actually total cost, whatever you folks want. You can go in here and manipulate this. Once you have this map, it's going to retain that for your next time you come in. So that's quite nice. And then remember when we were looking at that pyramid, and up top, we said something called a project type. Well, this is here. We can go in here, and as you notice, I selected 2 of these projects, okay, which were in the program C300, and I know that these are, okay, workflow projects. Now, they could be different types of projects and whatever I have, and now we can go ahead and bulk create these. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking 2 or 3 or 15, 25, doesn't matter how many projects, and I'm with a single 1, 2, 3 clicks, I just created 2 projects. It went out and said, hey, because it's a workflow project, make sure it takes that workflow. We'll figure out what that's going to look like in a second. But it also went out and grabbed a template for the actual project, okay? So time saving right there. We went and created a project across the organization, and we were able to create 2 of them that would potentially have a list. So if I go back over here and I go to my project view, now this is going to look at all the projects, all the proposals in this case, or requests that I have, and we can actually look at what stage they're in as well. But I wanted to go ahead and just take a look here at a few of these. And let's just take a look here. We have our Oracle replacement and a couple of these others. If I open up this Oracle replacement, I just want to share with you. This is where that workflow is going to happen. So if there is workflow within your project, this is where you would go ahead and start to see all this. Now, in a later demo here, I'm going to go into some of this information, but I just want to show you a little bit about this project before we go back out into the modeling aspect of this tool, because this is going to, you're going to understand how are we getting some of this information. Well, the schedule, pretty straightforward. What's it going to be? Well, folks, did you see me add in all this detail? Well, I didn't do that. What I did is I simply chose that template, and it says, hey, because you're choosing a workflow project, I know exactly what rules you want to play by. Here are 5 milestones or deliverable, in this case, stages, if you will, and all the information that's in there. So it's grabbing that. You could have multiple, you can have as many as you want templates in here, and as well as a strategic impact. So this is a workflow. So what it would do is come in here and we'd rank these simply. We'd say, hey, I want to edit this. And if we're going to do this at this level, we want to cut capital spending by 5%. Okay, it's moderate, strong. Yep, it's definitely going to be doing that. Expanding into new markets and segments, well, it's going to grow. Well, it's just going to grow into new markets, pretty low. And I go through here and I'd make some decisions about how this request has impact on our strategy across the organization. Now, if you're sitting back and saying, well, what if it's a small project? Well, if it's a small project, remember when we created that project, we'll just say, quick project, small project, no workflow, whatever you want to call it, and we wouldn't even potentially have this at all. We might just have a rating that says prioritize 1 through 5, really up to you. So at this point, we bulk created a project. We uploaded or created some ideas using a form that could be on our phone or any other device. It's browser-based, so it doesn't have to just be a Microsoft browser and or tool, meaning machine. And then we also showed where we're able to select multiple projects and marry it up to a template to really quickly create all this. What another thing does within the tool set as we create all this is it's creating this. I'm going to leave it there. Notice it says, do I want to leave this page or stay on? I'm going to stay on this page. Why? Because I didn't save. I like that tool. That's a very good demonstration there. Right top hand corner, it goes off and tells you when you're ready to move on. The collaboration area, okay, would be here. Now in this case, we don't have a site that was configured. Not a problem. We're going to show you that as we go through this demonstration and be able to have that all in one place. So what do? We went through demand management. We created bulk projects through a list. And we also leveraged that, in this case, Power Apps request form. All right, so any questions that we have out there? Let me just double check. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, can you explain to us what? Let me read this question. Can you explain to us how you created the form? Sure. The form in this case was created with Power Apps. So if I go back over here and I actually just go back to my site, what we did here is we created right here a Power App. And if you're unfamiliar with what that is, if you just go to the waffle and you come down and you look for all apps, you go down here and you look for Power Apps right here. You might need to install it, but once you do that, it is a drag and drop capability to create a form, etc., based on anything you want. In this case, we linked it up to some project data. Okay, so then again, that was using Power Apps there. Good questions. Keep them coming. Great. So portfolio modeling and scenarios. What is this all about? Well, earlier in the demonstration, you may have seen where we created all those tasks from a request and created those projects. We're beyond this now. So we are a leadership committee, a PMO, a group, an organization, whatever you'd like to call it, that's going to get into to take a look at, should we add in more projects? Does it impact our resource utilization? Okay, and what is the overall cost? What's it going to do to my budget in this case? So from a portfolio management group or organization here, we really need a tool that understands different what-if scenarios, allows us to save different scenarios in this case, and be able to maximize our value, if you will, of that portfolio. What do I mean by value? Well, if you think about it, each project within your organization should contribute, okay, to the end mean. And in this case, the value here could be based on budgeted costs versus ROI potentially that's coming back. However you want to do this. And what we're going to take a look at is understanding that value and how your selections, okay, impact, meaning what goes in and what stays in the portfolio and what falls out, how much value we get from that portfolio if we do that subset of projects, okay? So by taking a look at this, we're going to get into the tool set within the portfolio aspect and start taking a look at modeling. And for this, I wanted to pull up a portfolio that I've already created. In this case, there's one that 2016, it doesn't matter what you call it. As we come in here, the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're selecting our prioritization type. And in this case, prioritization is all going to be around either a pairwise matrix, in this case, sample prioritization, and it's going to say, is this driver bigger than the next? So in this case, is A bigger than C? Is C bigger than D? And is D bigger than A? In that case, it doesn't work out too much, right? So we have to figure out a commonality of how we're ranking all these. And that could be pretty difficult if we have 6 or maybe 5, 6, 8 drivers and we have multiple projects. So what the tool does here is it allows you to do that. If you say, you know what, we're not quite there, our maturity of our organization. We just want to prioritize here using risk or a score or whatever it happens to be. No problem. Go ahead and just create a custom field here or a bind on a custom field, and you can select that. You go into your projects. This is just a list of projects. You can group or sort it by stage. You can do a lookup, whatever you'd like to do here, and I'll show you here because I typically get a question of, hey, how'd you get those projects in there? So here it is, left-hand side, all your projects. You can have different views in here. You can go and say, you know, I only want to see, you know, we want to sort in this case, and I only want IT projects or however I want to do all operations, et cetera, whatever you need, you can pop those in. In this case, we have a subset of 9 projects that we're taking a look at, and we can go through different constraints. Well, one of our demonstrations is going to be looking at resource constraint, so we definitely want to make sure we have that. And the other we're going to see in a moment is going to be our cost constraint. So in this case, we're going to do it by budgeted cost, and that's the number that people filled out when they said, hey, we'd like to do this project. So what we did in that form is we asked for a budget. Said, hey, give us a budget. Now you need a horizon. In this case, a planning horizon. Simply grabbed 3 years here, 2.5 years, whatever happens to be. It's really up to you. And that's really, I like to think of that. You can set it as the budget horizon, or where we got to fit everything in between your left hand and right hand. Well, those are those bounds, okay? And as long as you move things around like Tetris and it fits, then we can go ahead. Otherwise, it's say, nope, I can't do that without pushing out the end date or this planning horizon. So it's really good to have that. And there's a few others around resourcing and all this good stuff. If you want a more detailed demonstration on this tool, just let us know and we'll make sure that we get in there and show you that. So after we go through here, we want to go forward and prioritize our projects. So it will take this information, it'll grab those projects, and it's going to go off and say, hey, how do you want to prioritize these? I have 9 projects, and based on how we filled out the entries from these projects is how we're actually going to prioritize them. It's going to say, hey, project number 1, is X percentage. Project number 2 is the following, 20%, 50%, whatever it happens to be. Well, we had selected, remember, a pairwise metrics, or in this case, it's taking a look at that metrics. And then right here it says, hey, you have all those projects. And remember in the earlier demonstration, or if you haven't seen it, go back to the ideation area and take a look at this. This is where you can go into a project and see the ideation, okay? And in this case, by project, you'd say, for expanding its new markets, I think this is strong, medium, moderate. And remember, if you recall, they had one-to-one numbers on this. So this is, ask your 5-year-old, they could do this. It's $5 million to $7 million. That's how much we're going to get back, increase market share. It's straightforward. Now I can always go in here and change these, say, yep, I know what they said, the requester said, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to moderate or whatever happens to be. Doesn't really matter as you go off and change this. It's really going to change your overall priority based on this. And we have organizations, okay? We have organizations that come in here and select and change things as they go through and as they go through this tool. Let me just bounce here and come back. The next area is going to be around the prioritization. And this says, mirror, mirror on the wall, I have the 9 or so projects out there, which has the highest value based on that metrics or risk score, 1 through 5, whatever it happens to be. So if we bring back our 5-year-old again and say, we have $100 for you. Based on the $100, we're going to give you that percentage of that $100 and say, we want to do the most value for our portfolio, or we want to get the most dollars here. They're simply going to take the top 4 and say, yep, that's what we're doing. Well, great. That's what we get back as far as the value. But can we do it? Meaning, do we have enough resources? How much is it costing? And this is where our Excel scenarios start to break down. And we've seen some really complicated, amazing spreadsheets or homegrown systems that are out there that start getting into the cost analysis. But where they really have difficulty is after the cost analysis, that's when it starts to drop down. It's getting into the resource piece of this. So that's our analysis. It's setting up what the analysis is and getting it into an area where we can take a look at the, above the waterline or below the waterline. Now, we are talking about program management as well as prioritization. Now, I showed you some of that in just the last screen. I'm going to re-show you that for those folks that are coming in just for the prioritization of this piece. And again, this could be a single field. You could say, hey, I want to prioritize by risk score, or maybe whatever you'd like there, okay? And you can go forward. Or you also can do a more complex, and you can take a look at strategic drivers in this case. And as we take a look at our values as well as our portfolio, that's really where we get into this prioritization. And eventually we're going to see something like this: by stage, by person, okay, whatever view you're looking for, is what are we actually getting out of this system, and how much is it really costing us, and what resources. So we're back to this view here, and this is where we said the top prioritization of our projects is really what we wanted to start doing. And that's really nice, okay? We got to get into the cost, and we got to get into the resources within here. So capacity and financial planning, it's really one within the same. Now, we're going to get into how you take a look at the resource piece of this as well as the cost. Well, in the tool, it sort of goes, resource is the last thing to say, because, right, you can build a project, you can baseline it, you can give us estimated cost, whatever it happens to be, and then you can give it to another project manager and they can say, great, I can run this. I don't know anything about your organization, but I know you baselined everything. Well, with one thing, you have to help me with the resources, right? So that's where, when you take a look at here and we get down to this last one, the resource, that's where the amazing happens. So we're going to get the resources in, and we're going to take a look at our resource capacity. And since I'm sort of leading into here, this is what we're going to get out of the tool, right? Everything that we put in here is going to say, hey, we have this amount of resource that's being requested. We can take a look across the organization and really understand what our overall capacity is within the tool set. But before we get there, we need to get in and actually understand, okay, what is going with the scenario here. So as we go through here, we have to take a look at cost. If we do all of these projects, how much is it going to cost for us? So in this case, if I was to come back and just select, right, our baseline view, there we are, it's going to say, great, it's going to take $2.5 million. And if you remember, we are going to ask a question, say, hey, portfolio manager, or maybe executive CEO, the she's and the he's up there, say, how much do I have for this overall portfolio? And they could say, hey, you only have $2 million, okay? So, or one and a half. In this case, let's go ahead and look what $2 million looks like. Boom, here we go. So we have a bunch of projects, 7 of them, and we have 2 that are left out. Well, let us say that, you know, the Silver Docs project is a regulatory compliance. So we have to do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we could go in here and say, hey, we need to do this. And this area that says forced in, it could say regulatory, it could say whatever it wants. In this case, it's going to say forced in. And we go ahead and recalculate this. Each time we recalculate, what we're doing is we're adding a button here, okay? And we're trying to do this. Now, this is okay. I've already run this scenario, so it's just giving me a little warning here. Now, as we push things in and push things out in these different scenarios here, and here's that $2 million regulatory, okay? Is it bounces projects in, and you can see it forced not one project in, it pulled another one in and moved another one out based on what? My overall value, meaning based on priority, and then how much it's costing us over here. And we're still underneath that $2 million budget because we're at 1.9. Now, all of these buttons, okay, you can create your scenarios. So think about it this way. So I'm now seeing an opportunity where we can do some of this data collection and scenarios before we actually go into the portfolio meeting. And we can say, hey, these are the top 4 that we recommend. And then on the fly, you know, Samantha over there, she can say, well, how would it look if we, you know, added, you know, force in this project, right? BioLite, we got to do. Let's take a look at that. Well, We can ask Samantha, well, why are we doing that? And she gives us a really good explanation. We say, okay, great. We're going to go off and do that. And we can recalculate and do something like that. And you'll be able to see where do they fall on the efficient frontier. What you're trying to do on this is get as much value all the way up here, 100%, for the least amount of cost, okay? So here's the value, there's the cost. So you'd want something, if we could, way up here with not a lot of cost. It's kind of unrealistic up there. So it does follow this path of, hey, as we progress through our portfolio, we're spending money to get value. Now, one of the areas that I sort of make sure I talk about here, especially looking at cost and resource and analysis here, is the impact or the view of the strategic alignment in this case. So we have dark blue, which is budgeted costs. That's how much we're predicted to spend per these drivers. And then we have our driver importance. Well, this is interesting. Two things. This improved customer satisfaction score is not particularly high across our executive leadership, compared to maybe increased market share. But we are spending almost a quarter of our budget on something that has very little strategic relevance in the organization. So we could stop right there and say, time out. What is happening? Why is this going on? And, someone chimes in and says, hey, remember, we rolled out something, we had a recall. So this next, quarter is all about, making sure our customers are happy, high touch, etc. So we're going to be spending, absorbent amount to make sure that that comes. So that could be an explanation. You might say, sure, I get that. Or you say, if that's the case, well, let's go back and take a look at these alignments of our projects, okay? And we might have to do that. Either way, it's a key that I like, and it's very helpful. So when we go through here and we take a look and we start doing these different things, force in, force out, you actually can go through and say, hey, we're going to make it, the decision. And this is where we're going to go forward. And we're going to actually move forward with these projects. You can say, great. That's just on cost, though. So we have $1.9 million. Got it. We're going to do 8 projects. But can we get this done? This is the resource piece of the puzzle. So within the resource analysis, and I'm going to use this button here, you could also use the next resource. This is where it says, can we actually do any of this? What are we looking for? Or what are we looking like across an organization? These resources. And a lot of folks say right now is, whoa, where is this coming from, right? If we were to do a baseline, great, we pop everything in, and here we are. You're going to say, why wouldn't it take everything if we're looking at a baseline? Well, right now, folks, this is going across both projected work, meaning all these projects, as well as existing work within the system. So if we had asked for 25% project manager, it's looking across the project manager role, across all of our current projects and saying, can we add in 25% more of a project manager for this project during this given time frame? And you can see right here, July through July, or whatever happens to be here, okay? Is that possible? And it's saying, no, we can't. We have over allocations. We can't do any of that. Well, you can see that these are all stacked up. And we could come in here quite simply and just say, hey, how would this look if, we move this out, December? How would this look if, and you get the point. I can come in here and start pushing things out. Well, that's okay, but if we have a lot of projects, it's pretty much a guessing game at this point. So the tool provides you the details you need. And by going into the requirements, this is saying, hey, do you want to make those changes? Meaning move out these start dates. I'm going to say, nope, I don't want it to. Just leave. Okay. And by getting into the actual data, it's going to see at what point within the project request that we're over allocated. And it's going to show us some color. So in this case, you can see I got some red. So the analyst is over allocated. Okay. In October, if I come down here, I can see that the Zulex project is asking for, an analyst, that they're over allocated, as well as, here's the analyst again. So I can see that October happens to be the month. Okay. You can see a lot of buildup here during that time frame that we actually showed in the last view. Well, I can go through here. I can run some reports and say, hey, what is my deficit? So it will print this out and say, hey, you need 25% of a project manager, etc. during this time frame. I can also run a hired resource report. So two things that typically happens here is we say, okay, well, let's make some changes together. Let's go back to that the Gantt chart, and let's go ahead and push things out a little. And if I go ahead and take a look at that, we're going to move out some based on our start dates there. So what I did is I moved out some of these start dates here of some projects, and you can see that we were at September, now we're at May, etc. And I was able to actually move these projects in right up here. We still aren't doing all of them, but we went from in this case, almost 33% up to 65%. And that's a pretty substantial jump. No executive's going to want to say, hey, we got all this money, but we can only use half of it or 65% of it because we can't figure out when everybody else is available. So we're going to work our darndest to get this in. You could actually come in here and say, well, what happens if we hire some more resources? And I could go through and say, hey, we want to actually, hire some folks. I could say, boom, let's recalculate this. And it will tell us, who would actually be hired. If I go into this hired resource report and say, hey, you need these people, meaning an analyst, etc., for this given time. And since I already run that, I'm just going to pull it up here for us. So the tool has the ability to take a look at not only cost constraints, but also resource constraints. And at any point, you don't have to do resource if you don't want to. But at any point, you can come in here and say, this is what I want. This is what we're moving forward with, and we want to go ahead and commit it. We talked about workflow earlier. So it could take that workflow, it could then move these projects from, in this case, selection to where? Well, remember that slide we were talking about earlier on? It can move it from selection into phase 2, okay? And off we go with the planning and then our execution. So the tool will allow you to have not only that workflow, but also after the selection into the tool. Auditing. So how does this, how do we see all this? What makes decisions made? All of these scenarios are saved here. So you can go back and take a look at all those. You can do different comments throughout here, and you can go back and rerun some of these. So it's a really good, you can save as many different portfolios as you need. All right. So that's in and around the capacity or financial piece and taking a look at our bottlenecks that are there. Once we move our projects in, okay, we just pushed in Fitlex and Kinphase, SilverDocs, and GoodDraw, these 4, is we'd actually look into our tool set, and we want to then start to take a look at our capacity and say, okay, now that we just added these in, holy smokes, look, whoops, what just happened? Holy smokes, we have, some overage. We can see here that we added some more projects in. And again, we can go ahead and move and rearrange and do all that great stuff. So this is taking a look at all of our projects that are in flight. And if we check this little box up here, include proposed bookings, it'd be any of our proposed projects that would be coming in, or any of our generic resources. We're also doing that. Now, this is a piece around both financial tracking as well as resource capacity. So there is a tool that we've created that can track more than just cost. Two fields there, budgeted cost, I think we showed, and total cost. You can actually create a benefit tracker. So, hey, what are we actually going to propose benefits? You can do operational cost, OPEX, okay, year over year, month over month, whatever you'd like. Copy and paste it from Excel or use this grid to show. You can have things, again, it's any level of detail. If you're using Excel and it's not tied to the actual project today, give us a call, because it flows much smoother when you can have data that syncs directly to a project, especially for, in this case, financial reporting, all right, and being able to see all this information. Great. We got one more, and we have just about 10 or so minutes here. Portfolio measures and performance dashboards. This is where we really get into everything that we've put in the tool, whether it's been on this extended webcast where we looked at project intake, all of our requests, taking a look at our prioritization, looking at the portfolio, saving different business scenarios, and then actually taking a look at the resource and cost constraints of those portfolios and reporting on any of that. This is where all of that comes together. And we wanted to start with, some of those simple dashboards that we showed within the tool, taking a look at the project center and just do a rudimentary red, yellow, and green by all our projects, either by grouped by the actual status, or maybe even grouped by organization or project manager in this case. Right-hand side, just a simple scenario sample of one of our dashboards that we created. Again, looking at total cost, project cost versus original budget. We hear this time and time again. How are we doing on our spend? So what is our total project cost that we have here today? And then what are we budgeted to spend? And are we going beyond that? Or have we just, have we just started? You can do earned value management and all this other great stuff if you'd like to, and see some reports on this. So that's really where you're going to be jumping into all that. Well, I have a few other samples, but rather than show you some more slideware, I wanted to jump into the tool and show you some of these directly. So we're getting into Power BI, and so I just need to refresh this, and we're going to get into our area here. And when we go into Power BI, we want to take a look at our dashboard in this case. So up pops this information. This is one of the configured content packs, comes out of the box with you. Now we've changed this just a bit, but all in all, you can go in and do this and really get a bulk of this out of the box and free when you have Project Online. You can see upcoming milestones here, a portfolio overview, not only just rudimentary data here, project count. And as we go ahead and click on this portfolio overview, let's say, take this one, it drives into a detailed granular level of our overall portfolio. So we talked about today about getting requests in and actually starting to work on it, and what phase within our overall governance process these things land in. Well, we had some that were, again, in workflow project, and we did that sample. We can go ahead and take a look at all those projects here, see what's red, yellow, and green. I can click in directly and say, yeah, I want to go ahead and take a look at this project, okay, and see the information. It's going to bring us right back into Project Online, bring us into that project, and leave us off at that very healthy view, which is called the project site, where a lot of our team members and project managers are going to interact and collaborate. You can see that right here, and I can drill into data. I can go in, take a look at my issues and my risks, and really understand what's going on within this project per se. Not only does it give us the counts here, but also variance. All of these things can be changed to whatever you want. And then you have sort of, for us older developers and older school folks out here, you do have the parameters up top, the overall filter for everything that's on the page. Different timeline views, you can drag and drop things, zoom in, zoom out here on your timeline of your portfolio. In this case, we can see all January through April, just Q1. You can pull it back to, just for Q1 or however you want to do that. You can see that information. There's cost, there's portfolio milestones, a bunch of great stuff. I know this has been all around portfolio management. So one area that I saw a question earlier on that I'm waiting now to answer is about risk and issue capturing. And yes, you can do that right within the home page, okay? Your project area, your risks and issues, you can save them right there, and you can go ahead and tag them even to a task if you want. Well, that's great for a project, but how are we going to see that across the entire portfolio? What this tool does is it bundles up all those issues, in this case, risks, bundles up all those risks, and shows us across everything. So I don't have to go out to the individual project manager and ask what's going on. We can take a look at it. And reverse, the project manager also can use this to say, hey, are my important risks actually showing up on a view that the enterprise is going to see? So it goes both ways here, and it's very helpful. Again, the link here would drill you right back into the Gold Lab project for this issue about internal IT delays, and we can go ahead and update it or do whatever we need to at that point. Now, one thing I do want to show, it's sort of just a bonus for those folks that are listening to this recording or listening to it live today, is a status report. If you don't have a status report today and you're using, and you want to use Project Online and get started, give us a call. We can load up all your projects and you can have a simple, easy status report. Here's the wastewater refinement plant, and you can see that we have cost, which is sort of amber, and work schedules on time. You can see who's managing this project, what's the overall cost of work in here, and then you can actually see some upcoming milestones. The links directly into the actual schedule so folks can see it, and then the project collaboration area, or the workspace as we call them, the project site there. So all this information wraps into the reporting aspects of portfolio management here, and really from demand management that started with intake through the process of portfolio selection and make sure you're selecting the right tools, to our constraints with resource and cost constraints, all the way back into the overall portfolio. Well, you folks have been a good audience and asking some great questions. We wanted to leave some time for you to ask some more. But while you do that, we also wanted to provide, if you saw, the list there that we copied and pasted from in that first demonstration, the intake, you can go ahead and request a copy of our portfolio management toolkit, and we'll get you started with some of the, Excel reports that you have there, but also the area that you can see there on the left-hand side, which gets you be able to get some sample data if you wanted to copy and paste this into a trial. I mentioned trials. If you would like a trial with us, go ahead and reach out to info@ppmworks.com and just say you're interested in a trial, what organization you're with, and how many people that are in that organization that you think would use a tool at some point. Now, we did want to call out a subscription. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to us. This recording, as well as all the recordings that we've done, are out there. So being able to subscribe to us definitely gives you the information at your fingertips whenever you need it. Now, lastly, I wanted to, again, thank you for everybody being on, but just a little call to action. Reach out to us. Get linked in, okay? We'd love to see what you're doing and also help you out. If you have any questions, not only on this topic, but any other topic, just let us know, and we'll do our best to make sure that we help you or point you in the right direction. Some folks were asking about, mentioned some free planning services or ability for us to help you get started. Absolutely, that's what we do on a daily basis. Reach out to us at info@ppmworks.com. Let us know what you're interested in or what you're looking for, and we can get a team to give you a call the same day and get you started. Just taking another check on questions, and it looks like we've answered all the questions, and thank you for joining. So on behalf of PPM Works, Microsoft, and your team in the Northeast here, Boston-based crew, wanted to thank you very much for your time and joining. Have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.